What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Soccer Wise. David Goss and Jordan Angeli with you for another big show. We have a ton to talk about from the weekend that was in NWSL. We've got some unfortunate injury news to dig into and how it affects their teams. And then we've got a huge weekend coming up with some interesting matchups, maybe unexpectedly big-time matchups because of the wild and wacky nature of this league. Jordan, you were not on last week because, like classic youth soccer style, you did like a full tournament this weekend, right? 2 games a day. You had orange slices in between. You must have felt like very much back at home.
Yes, it was like a youth soccer tournament. I had 4 games, which was a lot to prep for. I think once you're there and you're doing the game, it's all the same, right?
Yeah.
You're just calling what you see in front of you and trying to be more alert and aware of what's going on. But the prep for it was a lot. And so I was like, I'm going to have to tap out. I didn't have orange slices, but my new obsession is poppies. I think I've told you that, right?
Poppies.
The drink, the poppies.
Oh, like the healthy soda?
Yes. And I'm not like I don't drink soda.
Yeah.
So the fact that I like these, and you should see my fridge right now, it's like,
what's your flavor?
There's multiple flavors I like.
Okay.
The Dr. Pop is one of my favorites. It's like
Dr.
Pepper.
Okay.
The orange cream is delicious.
Okay.
I like the cherry cola. And then there's a raspberry. I've heard people say raspberry rosé. I think it just reads raspberry rose, but it doesn't taste like rose. So those are my 4 favorite. I don't have a 5th.
That sounds like most of the flavors. I think you've gone through the full brand.
There's so many. I'm trying to get one of our segments sponsored by Poppies, so then we can just sip them as we talk about all things NWSL.
If anyone works for Poppy Soda that is listening right now, reach out to me at SoccerWise HQ. If not, I am about to start digging in and looking for this because this is the dream. Do you like all those soda flavors, non-poppies? Like, were you like, oh, I used to drink Dr. Pepper and orange cream and all that?
I would say, okay, my favorite soda, I'm just not a big soda, but if I want a soda, I either want a cream soda, I love cream soda, or a Dr. Pepper. But then I would have like 2 sips because they're so sweet, and I'm like, I'm good. Yeah. I don't want any more. So that's where it's nice. These poppies, I can drink the whole thing, and those are like my treats. I think I had one before every game, which made it way more doable. It gave me a little bit of energy, some happiness. I just love you, Poppy.
Yeah. Wow. Love. That is an intense word. It's deep. It is deep.
Do. It's real.
I'm also not a soda drinker. I associate soda with some meals, so then I crave them in those moments where it's like, oh, basically anytime I eat fast food, which is not that often, I want a Dr. Pepper because you always would get a drink with it for free, and then you'd have to pick one, and that's the one I picked, and then it would just be associated. So like,
I love how you said you got it for free. Like it's part of the meal that you pay for, but it's free.
But it comes, so I'm gonna drink it. Yeah, you're right. I could have saved money by not getting the meal and just ordering the 2 things that I was already gonna eat. So that's like most of my soda, and then I've adopted a bit as like road trip, try and wake you up.
Yeah.
Type energy boost.
Because you're not a coffee drinker.
I am a coffee drinker, but only in more select moments. Like if I drink 5 coffees, or if I drink a coffee, you're driving at 11 p.m., I will get the shakes and I will freak out. Yeah, and
that's not
it's
fun.
Less ideal. So if I'm trying to manage that's when I do. But I drink coffee every morning, and now living in Miami, I'm trying to learn to drink coffee
Cuban
more
coffees?
casually. We had this conversation last year when I first got here, where I didn't know about Cuban coffee, and I almost lost my mind, and I actually didn't drink it. I have only had it 1 time since. Okay. I don't think I can. I don't think I'm strong enough.
Yeah. At Vista, they make some of the workers there will make Cuban coffees, and they'll just be sitting on the station that you can just go through the cafeteria area. And if you choose, you can have it. Unfortunately, my games are at 10 p.m. and I feel like if I drank that
you'd be up
at
till
8
the next
p.m.,
day.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I would just be going all night. So
you would run back to Denver at the end.
Yeah, I know. If I had an early game and they were available, I would definitely partake because they are good, because these guys really know what they're doing.
But what's so confusing to me is the cup is so small. What's the enjoyment? You know, like you can't sip on that. And so I don't, like, when I travel, especially in Europe, I'll drink like 900 espressos because I find that there's less caffeine. I'm sure there's some research behind this of like the caffeine that gets added and doesn't get added. So I have this theory that there's less caffeine. So I'll drink 500 of them. And it's a bit of an experience. Like you go, you stand at the counter, you sit at the cafe. That I get. The Cuban coffee, I'm like, so do you sit around with a thimble and everyone takes one sip and then walks away? Like, there's no experience in that besides the fact that your heart feels like it's going to pump out of its chest. I think everyone's very happy about this conversation.
I think so, too. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Feel fortunate that you didn't have to hear me scream about the Knicks like I did yesterday or learn how poorly I make salsa. If you listened yesterday, I would like to say I appreciate everyone's feedback. I got a lot of advice of how to make salsa. I will try to do better next time, and I will report back. That is my promise. My hope is that next time we do this, we'll have our third co-host with us, two-time Olympic gold medalist, and arguably the greatest skier of all time, Michaela Schifrin, because she is technically best friends with us now, right? Is that what's happening?
And everybody knows Soccer-Wise is for Denver. So what a good announcement, right? We have a really solid foundation of who our ownership group was, and now we get to add in some really fun pieces like Michaela Schifrin, who I've had the chance to meet a couple of times, and she's just, for someone who's won everything, like she's won everything. What is she, over 100 World Cups she's won?
Which is the record now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. She's so humble and sweet and personable. I'm really excited to have her as a part of the ownership group, and we're not done yet, Gus. We're not done yet.
Wow,
so I'll just say that.
Should we start going through a list of celebrities from the Denver area that we should know?
If I blink, then that means.
Okay, good to know. Michaela Schifrin's a legend, and as you said, awesome human being, incredible Olympian, and will be hopefully skiing next year in Milan. And then I think the next Winter Olympics is in Salt Lake City, right?
I think you're right.
It's coming back to all the big sports are coming, by the way. We think the 2031 Women's World Cup is coming.
Right.
We're not 100% sure. We're only 99% sure. 2028 LA Olympics. Then you've got Salt Lake City and obviously 2026 Men's World Cup. So the United States is becoming the center of the world in the sports world. And Michaela Schifrin will be a part of For Denver to promote that the entire way, which, of course, as it says on the bottom of our live YouTube show, if you want to listen, if you're listening via podcast, you can come there anytime. The show stays up, or you can watch it live. It says Soccer-Wise is For Denver. Every week, do a weekend recap show on Mondays that drops. It just gives you the highlights of what went down on the weekend. Maybe I'll dig in a little bit to one of the bigger storylines. This week, my opening line for the opening segment, which was about NWSL, was that we know nothing. We approach things in NWSL and we say, okay, this is what's starting to become the realities. These are the top teams. These are the teams that have established themselves as powerhouses. These are teams that are struggling. And in this weekend, the top four teams all failed to win. 3 of them lost. 1 of them drew. Gotham drew at home to Chicago. Washington lost at home. And both Orlando and Kansas City went to Cascadia and lost 1-0. One on Friday night, one on Saturday night. In a vacuum, each of those results you can sort of explain. Altogether, I think there was this feeling of what is going on in this league? What do we really know? I will ask you this. Of the 4 results coming out of the weekend as you look back, or maybe during it while you were calling some of these games or watching, which of them maybe shocked you the most, or was it just the total amount?
The one that shocked me the most has to be the Chicago result.
Okay.
Because Chicago has been leaky. They don't score a lot of goals. So you're hoping that you can just rely on your good defense to stop Gotham, who Esther was on a streak. She had scored 7 goals in 4 games. Like, not even in 7 games to start the season, which is true, right? 7 goals in 7 games. But it was actually only 4 games that she had scored 7 goals.
Yeah.
And the fact that this Chicago team who was on the back of losing their head coach during the middle of the week to going to Gotham, playing an early game there, a lot of things had to go right. And I felt like for them, they really frustrated Gotham. And that, to me, if I look at all the other teams, I would say, okay, yeah, I could see that result happening. But with this one, I just didn't think they had it in them to get that result. And it was a really good point for them. And it felt like a strengthening point. Like, okay, we can have a shutout. We can not give up goals. And they kind of needed to know that with the way that this season started.
I think Sam Staub came out of it and said, like, we're moving in the right direction. If we play that way, we'll be okay. So to have a defender of that experience, I think who's dealt with a lot of chaos, not just her injury, but the way the team has been structured around her, to say that, I think, sort of shows you her feeling internally of this was better. Like, this was an identity that we can live on. It was obviously Masaki Hemi's debut as interim manager. We don't know how long that title will last, or maybe that will be the full-time manager. We don't know anything really coming out of it. But I think for me, I didn't watch this game live, and it was one of those, Gotham's going to win early on Sunday. San Diego Bay will finish the weekend. That's like kind of how it felt as you look through the schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. And it felt like that even, I would say, as I was calling the game, one of the things that shocked me at a certain amount of time, I can't remember, it was in the first half, but I look at the possession stats and it was nearly equal for both of these teams. And that was pretty shocking to me. Granted, I don't know. Sometimes you get these day games that just feel a little wacky. Like it felt like everything was off for Gotham. They didn't have Jess Carter, another player in their back line, where they have been so solid in their back line, but now they're losing a player, it feels like, every week to a short or long-term injury, and then they're shuffling and reorganizing. It just felt like they lacked their connectivity and their ability to truly be themselves, because there were a lot of players in different positions. But I think for Chicago, I saw them keep the ball more than I ever have. I thought Jamise Joseph continued to look pretty good at being a target and on the dribble, creating, either finding Ludmila. They should have scored a minute into the game. It should have been 1-0 Chicago. And if it was, I wonder how the game would have ended up, because do they then let down a little bit because they had the lead? I don't know. We'll never know. But I just thought there were a couple of really good individual performances in the Chicago team that allowed them to keep possession, look like they want to be. I mean, they've always said this, but they want to be a little bit more ball dominant. And there was some good moments for them, I would say, after what really -1 bright spot in that Bay victory has been a pretty dreary start to the season.
They finished on 43% possession. I think overall for the game, I think it was 46 at halftime, and their season average is 40.
Yeah.
So like what you're saying is exactly what it was, which is it wasn't elite, but it was better for them. And I think that's some of what Sam Staub was mentioning was like, you're not defending on your heels the entire game, and you're not defending from such a deep position the entire game. And that's some of the hope for them. For Gotham, you said it, the injuries. They were so deep last year. I mean, Maitani's starting in this league, right? You have numerous players who are part of this rotation in the back line last year who left, and it felt like the strength was still there at its peak, but the depth wasn't there, and now it's being tested. And Tierna Davidson's injury is one thing, but to continuously lose pieces, Mandy Freeman and Jess Carter and whoever else it is, and Neely Martin has now basically played everywhere on the field, which is tough for her because she was so good last year and she had established herself as the 6, and it felt like that was a real position for her to thrive in and for a lot of the midfield to be built on. And right now, out of necessity, she's getting moved around, and I think it hurts the team centrally. Porchio's injury doesn't make things any easier, and you're still working a Midge Purse back where you can't get a full game, because I think Midge Purse is one of those players where in a game like you just talked about, she can break it open for you, and then you can kind of rely on her and lean on her. Ella Stevens hasn't been that way yet this year, where I think there's expectations, and so it sits somewhere in the middle for Gotham right now of, can they get that fortunate first goal? And if not, there's not really anyone to take the game by the reins and force it to happen. Roosevelt, I guess, would be one of those players as well. Right. If you were able to get her back. I would say for me.
Yeah, tell me.
The most shocking one of the weekend has to be Washington because of the way it played out. Again, in a vacuum, Angel City beating Washington with Washington's injuries, fine. But for Angel City to go to Orlando, lose, come back, I assume to LA, go out to Washington, D.C., go up 2-0, lose the lead, go up 3-2, lose the lead, and end up winning the game. I just wouldn't have thought that would be something that would happen to this Washington team, because with all the injuries, the strength is the back five. And they're not as strong in central midfield as they'd like to be. Hal Hirschfeld is a massive loss for them. Mm-hmm. There is, I think, serious questions about where Bernal should play as Hirschfeld's unavailable, whether it's truly just in central midfield to help block things before you get to the back line, or if you're safer in a back five, or Esme Morgan playing as that left back, whatever it is. I think there's questions of how to set this up because of the injuries you have, maybe not big picture the way your team is built. And so I wouldn't have thought that Angel City would fall again and yet somehow get back up and get the win. They were unbelievable in this game. Washington still had their chances and their opportunities. I think they'll be pretty frustrated with the end result in this one.
Yeah. I think credit to Washington that things weren't going well and they really utilized set pieces to keep themselves in this game. They were able to get 2 goals from Esme Morgan really off a second wave of set pieces, and to keep it alive knowing that there was an opportunity for them, because Angel City really has been weak on set plays this year defensively. I think it is a very shocking result because of the result for Angel City against to be up. They were up 2-0 again, right? And you just think, okay, are they thinking about what had just happened? Are they already thinking, okay, we got to hold this because last time we didn't? And is that starting to eat away with them? But it felt like, although this game ebbed and flowed at times, when I watched it, I was really impressed with Angel City. Yeah. I loved how they, to me, Washington, yes, they play in a 5-back, but it really a lot of the time looks like a 3-4-3 or a 3-4-2-1.
Yeah, especially with McKenna Morris playing as that wing back at times in this game.
Yeah, and Carl then with Bernal in the back line. And I thought that Angel City found the free midfielder in the middle of the field time and time and time again. And it didn't feel like Washington had any answers for that. Now, Washington missed a pretty big sitter right towards the beginning of the game with that Kouassi. Was it Kouassi that missed it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Kouassi, like, you don't expect that from this group. But I think Angel City's mentality to keep themselves in the game, to press at the end of the game for an extra, for that game-winning goal, like, that was pretty ballsy away from home with the game going so back and forth. But that was a fun game. Yeah. Maybe my favorite game of the weekend, up there with the San Diego game.
It was a blast. It is fun because Angel City, while they have these fatal flaws, they don't try and change the game states to avoid them. They try and maximize what they're good at right now. Like, they open up the game. Like you said, they try and push. They try to create. I think Alyssa Thompson's in the elite category of must-watch players, and it's not just her, but like to have that star quality on the field, and then I think a lot of the pieces around her, especially Tiernan, are understanding how to use her strengths to your strengths. And so one of the things I love what Tiernan's doing is when Alyssa Thompson's playing, if she floats inside, Tiernan finds the channel and is able to get, whether it's a ball over the top or get into space and create pullback opportunities, and then reading on the flip side when to make the run into the box to get on the end of what she's creating. The Zalem goal was awesome. Like, that rollover with the bottom of your foot where everyone's going at 100 miles per hour, and it's that pause. I think some countries call it la pausa. Like, that moment where you're reading the game quicker, and then you don't need to finish with pure power from that position at that point. I thought that was really impressive from a player who I thought would have a huge role. Hasn't really, but should fit this style And I think it's a good day, or was a good night for Angel City to see Zellem fit into this group and say, okay, that's someone we can lean on going forward.
Well, I think they were utilizing Macy Hodge because she was a little bit more of a disruptor.
Yeah.
But I think that this Angel City team actually has the disruptors in the back line that they can just count on, and they don't really need their midfielders to do that. Yes, can they, Zellem and Kennedy do that? Absolutely. But I think what those two give you going forward is better than maybe what Hodge right now gives you in her disruption and creation. I thought Alana Kennedy was probably the best player on the field. Yeah. She was so good at advancing the ball, winning it back, winning the first. They won so many first and second balls. But you're right. Tiernan is, I think for a long time we've looked at this Angel City team and said, hey, you guys got a lot of good pieces. Why isn't this working? And to have a true 9, someone who's just like, all right, I'm going to occupy center backs, but I'm going to score goals. So you have to now shift the way you defend her, because you clearly can't give her space at the top of the box, because she has that shot at the end of the game where she nearly gets it past McIver. Okay, can't give her space. Well, can she run in behind? Yes, she can run in behind. Can she occupy a center back and give space to then Thompson in the channel? I think she does a lot of really things simply, a lot of things really simply.
Yeah.
And that really helps Angel City, because they know where their outlet is. She can hold the ball up and just lay it off and say, okay, play the next pass. A lot of up back and throughs work for this Angel City team well. They're pretty fun to watch. And we weren't thinking that at the beginning of the year, guys.
No. This is similar to how I've said about Portland. I think this is best case scenario. I don't know that this is a top 4 team. I don't know that this is a guaranteed playoff team. But, if you're a fan, you're going to enjoy it. It feels like there are building blocks going forward. One, you're getting a ton of young players minutes. So, from a roster point of view, there's building blocks. Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Savvy King a center back?
I think she is.
Yeah.
She was a center back in college, granted a part of a 3-back, and she has the qualities to go forward as an outside back. But I think playing as a center back actually simplifies a lot for her, and it allows her to win the foot race and recover possession. It allows her at times not just options in one direction. She has a little bit more, not 360, but everything's in front of her, right? So she has outlets to both sides. She has an option centrally and then an option long. I just feel like it has set her up to be more effective with what she's good at. And it's not going to, she's not going to be a world beater on the ball. Her distribution is not great yet, I don't think. But I think she looks a lot better than what we saw of her last year with just staying home. Maybe there's a couple of times she can go on the dribble and like Gordon does on the other side to just beat that first line of pressure. But I feel like it's taken a lot of pressure off her to just kind of stay and defend. And that's good enough.
Which is super interesting, because normally you start young players outside because your faults can be hidden a little bit more. And so it's an easier way to get introduced into the game. And then if you think they're a true center back, you move them inside. And it feels like it's a little bit different here. And I think they talked about it on the Prime broadcast about her speed. She has weaponized the things she's good at, and it covers up for the things she doesn't have, which is pure natural size. And I think that's part of the set piece issue is you've got a lot of quick young players that probably are not as comfortable defending set pieces and winning that battle. And maybe it's not organized as well as you'd like. And that's where I think the question will come in, how it all fits together. I would love to see her in a 3-back setup, because I think attacking out of that wide center back position is something that we've seen as the game sort of has progressed globally. Of it's a real way to create danger, because there are runs you don't expect, whether it's in the channel out wide, which I think she could do. But she's been phenomenal at that center forward. And this Ashley Hatch is not an easy test. And that's worst case scenario for you of all the things Ashley Hatch does incredibly well are the things we think a young undersized center back would struggle with.
Yeah. Well, even in that game, Goss, it was 3v3 a lot of the times with the 3 up front for Washington and Gordon, Giselle I can't remember if it's Giselle or Vignola. It would probably switch back and forth depending on which side Angel City was attacking. But to feel that confident to say, okay, we're going to go 3v3 with Monday, Kwasi, and Hatch with our three of our defenders. Sam Lady has said we have the fastest back line in the league. If you look at all of them, I don't think he's wrong in saying that. They're speedy. And that you're confident enough to say, okay, win your 1v1 battle. It doesn't matter if it goes, which player it goes to. You guys are all in a 1v1 battle, win it. And they did a really good job of doing that in this game.
Yeah. There were moments that they didn't. You saw Rose Kawasi show why she was so good out the gate last year. And I think that's a huge element for Washington to bring back into the team. And Croy Bethune came off the bench and played in this game. Not as many minutes.
How about her first touch? She brings it down out of a punch with the outside of her foot or something.
And I talked about this on Monday. She had two moments where they played her into the channel. And it's like, oh, right. This player can get up to a speed other players can't. But touch and possession at that speed is so elite. And people started scrambling. And if you concede over 90 minutes where whenever anyone turns off mentally, or if the game just breaks the right way and rest defense isn't in the right position, she's off and running. I think it's clearly going to be a huge relief for this team to get her back and get her involved. I think especially for Ashley Hatch. Can Hatch then stay a little higher and not have to drop in and constantly be basically the 10 for this team. Lacey Santos missing in this one as well. The injuries keep piling up. Aubrey Kingsbury didn't get the start. It's 1 week. I don't want us to dig into it yet. I think maybe if this continues, we can talk a little bit about the goalkeeper battle for this team. The other two games that we didn't select, Seattle knocking off Kansas City at home 1-0, and Portland knocking off Orlando at home 1-0. I think part of that is obviously road games. I think part of that is a testament to Seattle and Portland, who have been really good so far this year. But we saw the cracks for Kansas City, no Shawinga, and I think you saw a little bit of the just threat and danger go away, even though there's still so much quality on the field.
And I liked what I just felt like Laura Harvey outcoached Flacco in this game. She played a 5-2-3 and there was no space in behind. And even when the ball got in behind, then there was an extra defender to help with the cover. Just similar game plan to how how they played against Orlando, but Orlando got that one chance and scored. And in this game, it just felt like Seattle looked more cohesive in it. Sam Meza was absolutely everywhere, winning all of the duels centrally. And, when you then get a couple of opportunities and you're playing against a Kansas City team, and if you don't put them away, then they start to eat up at you. And so to get that goal from Biondolo in the first half, it just felt like, okay, it was the first half, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't have the exact minute down, but it was the first half.
It just, I think, makes you feel like, okay, now we can really trust if what we're doing defensively is working, and we don't have to press as much for the goal, and we can get this win. So I was very impressed with that win from Seattle.
37th minute.
Yeah.
So in there. Seattle as well, you see the mix now of young, newer players and more experienced players. I think early in the season, it was very inexperienced lineups. And then when players got healthy, fully experienced. And I think now Laura Harvey's starting to find the mix of how it all fits together and works. And I think this is one of those matches. We've talked about Serena Gorsevic and where she fits in. And I've been really impressed by some of her performances not getting in there. I think this is one of those games where it's physicality, ability to win 50-50s, and just experience and knowledge of when to take risks and when not. That's what you lean on in a game against the Kansas City, which would be different, maybe, against a different opponent. And it feels like Seattle starting to have a couple of those options. On the Portland side, Olivia Moultrie is phenomenal. You can build attacks around her. This team's ability in transition is really impressive. And so I think against this Orlando team, you saw large stretches where Portland had possession, and they were able to dictate the terms of the game. They didn't have to sit in. And so Orlando was against the game. And at home, you get the crowd behind you. That's what you want. The goal is unbelievable. And that's not really what you're probably writing down going into this is, can our left back hit the best goal of her life in this one? But they were able to take advantage of it. And I think to Portland's credit, they pushed the rest of the game. They didn't sit back and try and defend the 1-goal lead like what we saw for Angel City last week. And for Portland, it made it worthwhile that they were able to get the full 3 points.
And I think this game really, after the Portland result last weekend without Sam Coffey, it just feels like, man, how important is she?
So good.
Not just dictating where they kind of shepherd play into defensively and picking up those free balls, but also her times where she picks and chooses when she's going to get into the attack and says, all right, if you're not going to follow me as a midfielder, then I'm going to be free and you guys are going to be up, or you're going to be down a player because I'm going to put myself in this attacking situation and just overload of space. I think she's just so intelligent. And if this would have been, I think, a different case where she was still gone on, I think it was her brother's wedding last weekend, so she was excused absence for that. But now she's back, and I don't think they get the win if she's not in there, just because how she leads this team.
I talked a little bit about her possession play in the show on Monday. I think it's the goal where she goes and they take the throw in quickly, because she comes and is an option high up the field. And then there's moments throughout the second half. There's one moment where she comes and she stabs at an outside the football. That's okay, the ball's being played into her centrally. Orlando rests for a moment, thinking that it's going to then be slid out to the opposite side. And she hits this outside the football down the same sideline. And now Portland is flying forward when you didn't think they would. I just feel like it's one of those... there are things that take space. And if the space is open, you see them take it. And it feels like this is the best we've ever seen her play because she needs to. And that's really cool to watch play out of. If she would tell you, I'd rather have Sauerbrunn and Sinclair in front of me and behind me so I don't have to. But she does, and she has stepped up to that level in a way in which I think we're going to see the best soccer that she can play because this group relies on her so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it's really entertaining. Portland, it's an entertaining brand of football. It is way more open than I think I would have thought going into this season. But there's some good players on that team who are making a name for themselves.
It is one of the must-watch groups, as is this Angel City group. We will talk about them coming up in just a moment. But let's go into the unfortunate news that we got out of Louisville in that Racing Louisville coming off a 2-1 victory against Houston. So a good come-from-behind win for this Louisville group. It makes back-to-back results for them after the 3-3 absurd game in Portland, which we'll talk about in just a moment as well, for a Louisville group that started the year pretty slowly. To get that victory, their first victory of the year, is huge. But then, off the back of that, they get the news that Katie Lund will be put on the season-ending injury list. Lund unavailable for this game, so Jordan Bloomer stepped in for her. Katie Lund had started 79 consecutive matches, stretching back through the 2022 season. She set the record for saves in an NWSL season that year. I think it was 113. I had it. I read it. I didn't write it down. And over the course of the years, 18 shutouts, over 300 saves overall. That is a rock and stabilizer to lose. They get the victory in this game against Houston. As I said, coming from behind the Avery Patterson goal. So it was a high, a low. What can we take from them so far? And what does this mean for this club?
Yeah. I felt like Jordan Bloomer came in and did a really good job. And it makes you appreciate number twos in this league, or maybe 1.5s, as Saskia Weber always likes me to say, is...
Joe Lloyden has just entered the chat.
Yes, well. Right? They do a lot of work on pushing the number one keepers to make sure that every week they are prepared and ready. And I think because of that, it actually sets them up to be prepared and ready when the time is called. Look at Angelina Anderson this year. Mm-hmm. Is she perfect? No, but she'd been playing under Didi Hadicic for really a year, minus those few starts she got at the beginning of 24. And she stepped into this role with some confidence. And I think that's the biggest thing I took from Bloomer, is she stepped into the role saying, I'm good enough to be here and I can make the saves when called upon. That Avery Patterson goal, sorry, no one's saving it. It was so good. Yeah. That was so good that you just got to throw that one away and say whatever. But to get a victory, to have some massive saves like Bloomer did, to be confident in some of the areas where she's good, shot stopping, crossing. I thought that she had a pretty for all encompass purposes, like this is a good start for her, knowing that she's going to now have to take on that role of being the leader in the back because they're not going to have Katie Lund, which is disappointing. I think because of what Lund was able to do in that first year. I'm not saying that she shouldn't have started, but I think it was easy to keep her in that position because things were going well. And I hope that everything with her injury, I hope she recovers perfectly and is back better than ever. But I think if you're Jordan Bloomer, you have to think about now it's my opportunity to perform well, not just for this team, but you're thinking, okay, next year there's 2 more teams coming into this league and that means 4 more spots, really. Because can you go in there no matter if you're their first or second pick and try to win that spot? So I thought, you think with the history of Lund, okay, this is going to break this team. And I was really impressed with how Louisville, with that weather delay, how they were able to respond and get the result with a new goalkeeper in net. It showed some cohesion to the group that I have been hearing about all year, that they really get along, that they really enjoy playing with each other. They feel like they're just that close. And these are the types of games you have to win because it hasn't been going great for Houston, and you have to find the victory when it's right there presenting in front of you.
And if you're Louisville, you have to be looking at it and saying, these are the teams around us. So can we, these are 6-point games. Can we take them off other teams or at a minimum get ties and then try and steal points in other places? I do think that backup goalkeeper into starter conversation is fascinating. This is in a weekend where Jordan Silkowitz made a penalty kick save as well. Another player who now is finally getting their opportunity and clearly is ready, which is such a huge part of all of that. For Louisville, they also did this without Ari Borges, who we then get word from NWSL that her suspension extended 3 more games. Wow. Besides the red card, because of the actions around that Portland game. I think it's probably for the statements post-game, as well as the actions on the field and the comments
I heard it was
to the referee.
She touched the referee. There was engagement with the referee after the game, and so that's where the suspension comes from.
Which is a huge loss. I think Louisville at their best is that midfield humming and possession. And Borges, I think, not only is a huge part of that, but then is one of the players who will break out and play a cutting ball, right? Where Flint's going to cycle possession more often. DeMillo's going to do it out of her runs, out of, I think, that midfield position. But Borges is the one who's going to break lines. And we see in this game, Emma Sears and that threat and ability over the top at the right times, that's probably this team's best attacking outlet. And Borges, I think, is a large part of playing into that. And it's not a very deep Louisville team. They haven't been able in their entire time in the league to build depth at most of these positions. And so they're going to be playing with one hand behind their back through this stretch, and to lose a big deal like Lund. But on top of all, but they won. Yeah. That's the most fascinating part of all of this. And so, as you said, maybe it's a galvanizing moment for this group. Maybe it's a reset for this group. I think the Portland game is probably one of those where you're in that sort of mud fight. And if you like your teammates, then you come out of that and say, look what we were able to do. Look what we were able to overcome. And then you get the weather delay and all of that. And you try and continue that and move it on. And we move into what is, I think, a really fun weekend. We put down our top games we like to preview, we like to talk about. They are probably not the games preseason we would have put down. I think that's to the nature of the way this season has played out. We start with Chicago against Washington. You talked about it. Chicago, a little bit more possession, a better overall performance. And while Washington is struggling with injuries, to have a new manager start with Gotham away and Washington at home is not an easy start in this league.
No, not at all. And this is a big game. I believe it's on ABC. So this is a game where you're hoping that both of these teams feel at their best and start to really figure out the tactics of how to break each other down. I think for Chicago, you have to take a page out of the Angel City book. And even though they're playing, Chicago has been playing in this 4-4-2, essentially, with Schlegel and Ludmila as the 2 center forwards and Schlegel a little bit more as a false 9 dropping into the midfield. They're going to have to utilize Schlegel in that position really well, because if you can pull out the 2 holding midfielders for Washington, we saw in this Angel City game, there's space to be had, right, between the defensive line and that midfield line. And it'll be a good test because we just talked about, is Chicago going to be a ball dominant team? Are they going to get more possession? Are they going to do a better job when they have possession to create into the attack? And I do believe they can with some of the players they have. The more possession they have, the more players they can get forward, and then there's options inside the box. But it'll be a test. I think Washington, with their front three, the way that Chicago is building, you have to be a little bit more cautious with the speed and the pace of that front three. If it is Kawasi, Hatch, and Monday, because there was some good interchange by the three of them, which might be difficult for the back line of Chicago to be able to just handle, keep in front of them, not give up space in behind without the game getting too stretched.
Yeah, it's I think it's a fascinating game for Julia Grosso, who can you come inside and create those overloads? Can you find those gaps on the side of midfield? And if you do, can you get on the half turn and be aggressive and make it turn into chances for this team? I think Grosso's attributes not game breaking, but she was brought in as one of the bigger names in this group, and to not have your biggest superstar, like, you need those players to step up. Ludmila did it in the one win. Can Grosso do it in a game like this? I think is absolutely massive. And then on the other side for Washington, it's the same as every week. Like, the Washington game starts with the injury report. Every Friday, you get that injury report, and that's where you start to understand what it's going to look like on the weekend. It's unfortunate. I think, again, fingers crossed, can Corey Bethune give you more minutes? Can Lacey Santos get back on the field? Because if she does, Lacey Santos, I think what we've seen is it's partially her possession and how good she is, but they are better defensively when she's in midfield. And she works hard, and I think she also makes the game more predictable for them to be in the right positions in rest defense, and that's something they definitely lost this weekend.
And the way I liked the couple of games where we saw her actually play lower with Narumi, because her picking up the ball in that lower pocket and playing it forward then left all this big gap for her to run into and occupy a little bit later. And she's such a sophisticated player that she thrives in that assist zone right at the corner of the box. Like, that is her favorite part of the field to play in, because she knows where her targets are. She knows who they are. And I just think with those three up front, it would be really nice if you had a player like Lacey Santos, who's very forward thinking, very aware of what the next play is even before she gets the ball. But I don't know. I don't know if Washington is going to even have her, if she's even going to be available off the bench. So it is unfortunate that that's what we have to talk about with this Spirit team before every game.
Let's move into the Saturday evening games, and we wanted to talk about North Carolina. They are facing off against Orlando. The North Carolina Courage are looking to make it 3 straight wins for the team that went winless for the longest stretch to start the season. They're starting to find their feet. 2-0 victory over Utah on the road in the last game. This, again, a massive test with Orlando. But this streak started with a victory at home over Kansas City, and there's no reason to believe this North Carolina Courage team can't keep rolling in this one.
Especially if they play like they played against Utah. Granted, Utah tried to switch formations. To be honest, they looked lost in the first half. It felt like they didn't know how to build out. Utah didn't. And they are a pretty possession-oriented team. I think they're like 5th in possession in the league, which actually surprised me when I was prepping for that game. So the fact that they didn't have that possession because they shifted formation and were trying to play a box against North Carolina's box, it was just too stagnant, and North Carolina played straight through them. And I think that this is why this game is interesting to me, Goss, is because North Carolina's midfield is ridiculous right now. And Orlando's midfield is the least confident we've seen them. And that is a shocker, because I do feel like this, and I don't know if there's any teams that you can relate this to, but last year with Orlando, it felt like they had this confidence about him. It was almost an aura. Anytime anybody would come to play them, it was like an oh crap, like we have to go play Orlando. It was intimidating to the other team, and that boosted the confidence of Orlando. And we've seen that fluctuate this year. Not to say that we haven't seen that, but there is less of a fear factor when teams go to play them. And I think the weaknesses are starting to be seen, which if I'm Seb Hines, I'm grateful for that, right? Because now we have something we can truly work on and get better on.
And you'd rather it now than in the postseason.
You'd rather it now. But if I'm North Carolina, I'm licking my chops saying, all right, we can get after this team centrally, pull numbers into the middle of the field, isolate on the channel, get Ryan Williams high, continue to cross from that space. Her and Sanchez have had a really good understanding of each other. And it'll be about stopping those channel progressions for North Carolina, where they have, at least in these last 2 games, looked elite in the way that they can get numbers, overload space in the channel and that half space on especially the right side, and then find the final pass. Like that was missing, is the final pass. Yeah. And it feels like they're getting there.
Yeah, that Orlando fear factor, I think part of it is just as good as she has been, just having played Barbara Banda. I think last year a lot of teams, it was like, no, we watched it on tape, but like I've never lived it. So then you at least have some frame of reference. And I think the other part is once you see someone get a result, other people have belief like, oh, okay, we can actually do this too. And there was an element last year of like, they can't keep getting away with this, of like they rode this line and every break went your way. And that's just not going to happen all season, every season. But they are still, I'd say, one of the giants of this league. And I think there is still the belief that like you have to steal points off them. You're like dragging results out of them. And for this North Carolina team, that's how I felt though when they went into that Kansas City game. And you talked about that final third quality, right? It all came late in that game, trying to make that run. But then you saw a lot of the confidence roll over. And it was like they just were waiting for that breakthrough. I've talked about Ashley Sanchez a ton. I thought she was unbelievable last year. I thought it would having Jaden Shaw would unlock her this year. That wasn't the case. But now you're seeing her play with this, I think, the swagger that she had last year. And she needs to be a finisher for this team. As much creativity as she has, like they don't have pure goal scorers. She has to be a finisher. And so to get her, if they can get width and have her come inside sometimes, that's when they're at their best.
I don't think people understand how difficult of a goal that was that she scored, jumping up, meeting the ball in the space that it was at, the short swing, hitting it back into the ground. There are so many things that are just like pin perfect about the finish from Sanchez. So I agree. She needs to be, and she will be more in this 3-4-2-1, really with 2 tucked in 10s. I think she'll be in those situations a lot more. And I'll just say, like, I think Jaden Shaw can help Ashley Sanchez a lot. Ashley Shaw. I just squished their names together.
But I think be a pretty good player.
I know, right? I feel for Jaden Shaw right now because I've been that player where you put expectations on yourself and you just feel like, gosh, nothing's going right. And then when you think that you're pressing the game and it's not natural and it's not you. And I feel like when I watch her play, that's what it feels like she's just putting so much pressure on herself to be what everybody expects her to be, when like she just needs to be Jaden Shaw. Like she is such a good feel for the game. And I hope, what a lesson to learn when you're 20 years old, right? I learned that lesson when I was in college. I wasn't playing in front of all these people with all these expectations of national team on me. But I do feel like it was such a valid lesson of like, I can contribute even when I'm not scoring, when I'm just myself. And I hope that she gets to that place, because watching her, you just kind of feel like there's so much weight on her shoulders, and you just want to shake it off her and be like, just go play, like enjoy it, go have fun. Cause that's when she's truly at her best.
And you want to also like sit down and watch the Brazil game with her and be like, this year, that's the way you played. Like she played free in those games, and the pressure was higher, obviously for the moment because it's national team in front of everyone. But I think she probably felt less individual pressure because there's more talent on the field, and it wasn't like I need to make the game. It was I can fit in, but she was the best player on the field.
I don't know if it's pressure or if it's expectation.
Yeah.
Right now the expectation is there, and when you feel like you're not meeting an expectation, you can kind of get down on yourself. Whereas like pressure, I think a lot of these players want to play in pressure situations. But I think to me that those feel like two different things. And I think the expectation is just a little heavy on her. And I hope that there's just a breaking point and it just flows, because Manaka, Shaw, and Sanchez could be the 3 best individual creators in this league, and all together could be really something special. And I think we'll see it. We just haven't quite yet.
Obviously every person is different, but in a scenario like that, do you like if a coach takes a player out of the lineup and gives them a breather, or is it you have to play to break out of it and that just makes it worse?
I feel like maybe a little bit of both. Like, she's young and only her and Sean know, right? Like everything that's happened, not just on the field. In the game before, she only got 11 touches playing as a 10. Like, that's not in that system. That is not enough. And so, you're not performing. And if that happened to anybody else, I'm sure that would have probably been the case, that they weren't playing. But also he knows what's going on in practice. He knows what other players are performing well. And so I think there's other factors that go into, do you bring them off the bench or do you start them? But the three things that you can do is work hard, stay positive, and be a good teammate, right? Like, and I think that those three things, if you focus on those instead of like all the other things that are going on, they find themselves and play simple, work hard, play simple, and be positive. Like, those three things can help you get out of a rut. And that was my formula that Jerry Smith gave me, and I felt like it really worked, and I'm passing it on.
And let's close out the weekend preview with a story we've kind of buried by half mentioning 500 times, that San Diego are maybe the most fun team to watch in this league. They got a huge 2-1 win against Bay at home, even with the penalty kick that Silkowitz saved on Maria Sanchez in the previous game. Now they face off against Portland, and I wrote on the rundown, like, this could be a track meet of sorts. Maybe not pure transition, because San Diego has some guile in them. They like to play outside, come inside, but these are two teams, it feels like, that are going to open up. They're going to attack, and you see so much individual quality in both these groups, and they're both really firing on all cylinders right now.
Yeah, they are. I think that it'll be interesting how Portland plays, because a couple of weeks ago when they didn't have Sam Coffey, I felt like the game against Louisville was like screaming for two holding midfielders to drag some of the midfielders from the opponents higher up on the field and then find that space in front of Raylan Turner and that front line. And the way San Diego play, that's how they play, right? With the two holding midfielders, I feel like it pulls a lot of attention towards that 3-2 build, and then they can find those pockets higher up on the field. And so if Portland do that in opposition to them, I'm really interested to see how that turns out and what questions can be asked of the center backs and Wesley and Armstrong, who Armstrong sneaky might be one of my favorite center backs in this league.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Like, I know a lot of hype
quickly.
very quickly. A lot of hype around Jordan Bugg and what she can do, but I've been very impressed with Trinity Armstrong from her first start in that Kansas City game to now playing in her natural position as a center back. Yeah. She just reads the game really well. So I'm excited to see how Portland utilized Castellanos and Turner, and maybe Hanks is back. I can't remember what Hanks got injured with. But Moultrie especially, like that space where Moultrie likes to pop up, is that a center midfielder space to defend? Is it a center back space to defend? How do they deal with that? Because not that there hasn't been questions asked of the San Diego's back line, but it's been so much talk about what they can do going forward that I think the speed and the pace in this track meet that you're talking about could be really interesting to see how San Diego handles it.
Yeah, I think you're trying to, if you're Portland, say, we know the reasons Kenza Dali's been played deeper and the things she can do from that position as an elite passer and as an elite chance creator. Can we put you under pressure, though, right? Can we flip the game and say, all right, but you have to prove that you can defensively be a deep lying midfielder? And you talked about it. I think Moultrie's movement in that space, Castellanos coming off the front line or coming in off wings, wherever she ends up starting. And we had someone in the chat mention Alidu, who has been like the perfect addition for them. Yeah, flexible, dangerous, gives the extra effort to like run down balls, save balls on the far post, close down. She's been a really nice add to the young attacking pieces who, as I have said, are going to be inconsistent.
Mm-hmm. And we can't talk about San Diego without talking about Cascarino. And and what I'm imagining is the matchup with her and Reina Reyes, which I think if I'm Cascarino, I'm really excited about it because for Reyes is a solid defender, but she bites.
Yeah.
And she'll bite hard. So I feel like she's already sitting on a lot of yellow cards. Can you get her in that place where she has to foul early on? You get her then in this precarious position where Cascarino just says, all right, well, defend me one more time down the line. That is going to be a key matchup for especially Portland if they're going to be successful, because remember when she came into the league last year, Goss, and I was like, Cascarino could be MVP in this league.
Yeah. She's played that way.
She has. Yeah. It's been so fun.
And it's obviously the way the game's set up is like those wide attacking players are always going to be headline players because of the chances they create. It's hard to be an MVP because you need to impact the game so much. And that's what's amazing about Cascarino is there's so much volume to the game-changing plays she makes for a wide player. Part of that is because she's comfortable coming inside. And yet she can still beat players 1v1, even when there's more numbers around her. You see it in the penalty kick that she draws. There's this ability, and I talked about it a little on Monday, of when people play her into the channel, and there's that moment where both the defender and the attacking player get to the ball, and you sort of establish like, okay, we're both in position. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to recycle possession. She has that then second step where she explodes past the defender after slowing up that no one can stay with. But then because of that, you're on edge. So then when she comes inside, you're not ready for it because you can't be prepared for it. And then to add on to all of that, Gia Corley is happy to take you on. Mel Barsanis is coming off the bench after you're exhausted and you've dealt with this for 80 minutes. They're fun. They're exciting. There's a moment late in the game, though, where Leon comes off the bench and doesn't play Cascarino into space early. And you're like, you got to play that ball. That has to be the next play. Yeah. But I think it's a new team still learning things. And this is going to be a fun matchup. And I think Portland has the ability to go toe-to-toe in this game.
Yeah, one last thing for me is Ascanio at this false nine has been really fun because of Sanchez tucked in and Maroney on the left side and Cascarino on the right side. Ascanio, there were a number of times where I'm just like, she just received the ball and dropped it off. The ball and dropped it off. Just was a target player who understood that in those moments it's actually just about the next pass being connected and not about her being a creative playmaker, which she is. She's a midfielder by trade. I think she's understanding the role really well. And because of her knowledge of how plays develop, she can actually play pretty simply, knowing that like her role right now is not to play that final pass. It's almost just to facilitate it to be able to be played.
But needs to know the runs to make to at least be the factor in the box. I thought there was a few moments, especially when they get Maroney into the attack down the left side, where there just wasn't the run across the near post. And there was no work for the center backs to have to do.
Yeah.
I think that's obviously the convo between a false nine and not a false nine. It's one of the things that's been okay for Portland because Hanks or Turner or whoever else is out there is making those runs. Mm-hmm. That's not really Cascarino's game. It's not really Corley's game. I thought there was a few moments where if you had one more runner, you maybe create more danger out of the run of play, where I think if I looked at this and I think San Diego probably should have won more than 2-1 against Bay. It probably should have come sooner. And those were some of the moments where I was missing it. But this one's going to be really fun to watch this weekend because, as we said, these are two teams that are finding themselves right now. They're both dangerous. They're both attacking. And it's going to be a great one. Jordan, we look forward to listening to you all weekend. As usual, we look forward to then coming back here. I will have the weekend recap on Monday. We will be back on Wednesday. And we will sprinkle everything else in. I think we've got another national team camp just around the corner, so we will obviously talk about all things that. And I think next week, I'm finally allowed to do our rookie rankings. I believe.
Yeah, I was going to say, we need to do those. I think
time. You told me that I had to wait 8 weeks, and I think next week will be
perfect.
Week 9.
After week 8. Perfect.
Yeah, so we are ready for it. I am looking forward to it. It has been awesome. It has been fun. Thank you to everyone in the chat for joining us. Thank you to all of you for listening. Rate, review us. Please share the show if you haven't already to anyone who loves this league or this sport. And we'll talk to you all again very, very soon.